From the book, he talks about the third one, which is loyalty and betrayal. Now, when I was reading this book, I made sure that I marked the pages which I was going to share. If you look at that, it's kind of like I've marked that part. So let's make sure that I mark the parts which I'm going to share with you guys. It's one book which I've read and I've marked almost every page. In part one of the review of this book, the author identified two main moral principles, and this was the principles of care and harm, and then the principles of fairness/cheating. And in the second part, where he talks about the weird societies or the weird nations, he identified four more moral principles. Now, for most of us, when we think about morality, we always think about care/harm or fair/cheating. Are we harming somebody? Whatever we are doing, is it harming somebody, or is it taking care of somebody? Or the second principle, we think about morality for the most part, most of us, is that, is it fair, or is this cheating or slacking? Now, those are the two main moral principles that most of us think about when we think about morality. But Jonathan Haidt, in his book, The Righteous Mind, he talks about four other aspects of morality which are very, very critical. And this is what he calls the conservative advantage, why people vote Republican. So for Democrats, because they're mostly into social welfare and stuff like that, their main concern or their main selling point every time they're campaigning is on the concept of care or harm, fair/cheating or slacking. That is always their moral compass. That is what they always sell. Now, for the Republicans, the reason why people always vote red and Democrats don't always understand why people vote red is because the conservatives have four more moral principles, which apparently is very important, and people take those ones as important as the first two. Which are these other four moral principles that Democrats don't think about, or at least people who vote blue do not consider as people who vote red? Let's look at them. From the book, he talks about the third one, which is loyalty and betrayal. Now, when I was reading this book, I made sure that I marked the pages which I was going to share. If you look at that, it's kind of like I've marked that part. So let's make sure that I mark the parts which I'm going to share with you guys. It's one book which I've read and I've marked almost every page. If you read a book and at least every single page there's something you're marking, you're underlining, you're writing, that means that book was well written. And I think that Jonathan Haidt did an amazing research when writing this book. I really feel like if you're somebody who is reading books and you haven't read Jonathan Haidt, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's high time you start reading Jonathan Haidt's books. He has several amazing books. I've read a couple of his books. This is probably one of his best works I've ever read. Before we continue the video, I just want to say thank you so very much for those who've shown me tremendous support in this channel for the past 5 years. It's been an amazing journey, but most of you do watch my videos and you guys do not subscribe. So guys, to continue the support and to help me and motivate me to continue to create great content for you, please do hit the subscribe button. It really helps a lot. The whole idea behind this channel is just to share the information I've gotten over time from reading hundreds of books from different fields of study. So please do subscribe and let's get back to the video. Moving back to what we were discussing, why conservatives or people vote red, apart from just the concept of fairness and the concept of care and harm, is because they also think about loyalty. Like, think about the military people, the soldiers who go and fight. Conservatives are people who really care about, they have what called the national pride in their soldiers and in their country being represented outside of their country. So them, loyalty or betrayal is very, very important to them. They are groupish. They are people who live in like hives, like a beehive. To them, it's a group identity more than an individual identity. I feel like the Democrats or the blue, they're more individualistic, like, hey, do whatever you want with whomever you want so long as you don't harm another person. Well, for conservatives, it's more of a group. It's more about national identity and national pride. Don't get me wrong. I don't say that Democrats don't have national pride. I just feel like conservatives care much more about loyalty and betrayal than conservatives. And indeed, even the author says that in his book. The fourth moral principle why people always vote red or right is authority and subversion. For people who are in the left, you'll agree with me that they really don't mind so much about authority. Actually, some of them abhor authority. They don't want authority at all. But for people on the right, to them, they see authority as a hierarchy where we have somebody at the top and followers who are following the leader. To them, that is still an important aspect of having order in society, and that's why it's easy to find demagogues and cult-like leaders on the right, because to them, they still respect and identify with authority and subversion. The fifth moral principle that the right care about more than the left is on sanctity and degradation. I mean, if you've ever been to any dating site like Tinder or Bumble or anything like that, you are almost always going to have this idea that majority of people who are in those sites are Democrats. I might be wrong. The thing is this, it's always very common to see people in those sites saying things like, if you voted red, swipe left. So it tells you about the demographic of those sites. And this comes down to the fifth moral principle that the author talks about of sanctity and degradation. For most people in the world, they still really see the body as a temple. They see the body as something which is supposed to be misused for any reason whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying people on Tinder are misusing their bodies or anything like that. I'm just saying it gives us a signal, maybe not noise, but a signal on the demographic that is on these social dating websites. To the right, things like being a virgin is still something. They may not be practicing it, but they still value it. So I've given you 5 test receptors or 5 different aspects of morality. And the first 2 are the ones that both divides care about. Both Democrats and Republicans, left and right, care about the aspects, the morality of care and harm, fairness and cheating. But then the other 3, which is on loyalty, authority, and sanctity, the right tend to care more about those ones than the left. Now, I said there are 6, so here's the last one. So the last one is on liberty and oppression. Everybody on the left, right, and the center, they care about liberty and oppression in equal measure. So this is also another aspect of morality that both sides care about. When you talk about all the 6 different aspects of morality or principles of morality as discussed or identified by the author of this book, then you'll realize that out of the 6, 3 cuts across both divides of the political spectrum. But the other 3, they're mostly leaning more towards the right than the left. And therefore, it's just easy to convince somebody to vote right than to vote left. Because people will see that the right kind of takes care of more aspects of morality than the left. So if you're somebody who cares about loyalty, you had maybe a husband who was a soldier, went to fight in Iraq or Baghdad or wherever, you're going to value that. You're going to say, hey, my husband or my father sacrificed his life or at least went to war for my country, and therefore I want that to be honored. Because of that, you're just going to find yourself voting right. Again, for people who care about sanctity or chastity, things like virginity and being holy and stuff like that, it's very easy to find religious people voting right, especially the conservative religious people voting right, because they still care about such stuff more often than people on the left. The last one is on authority and submission or subversion. There's still a group of people, believe it or not, a large group of people who really still think that we're supposed to have a leader and then followers. So many people don't want to make decisions, especially big decisions, by themselves. They want somebody to make those decisions for them and then they follow. It's just easy. Imagine having to decide whether you're supposed to go to a diplomatic war or not. It's easy when you give it one person or your leader to decide on that than you, an individual who doesn't want to think about that, to decide for the country. The right have got this thing easy on their side, and that's why people keep voting red, because the right just have more issues to sell than the left. Imagine serving over 240 million people 3 different soft drinks. Chances are, of those 250 million people, there are people who are not going to find their favorites in those 3. Now flip it and imagine you're serving the same group of people 6 different soft drinks. It's easy to get more people to buy into any of the 6 because now they have more options to choose from. They're like, okay, I don't like the first 3, but give me number 5. As opposed to the first group will be like, they only have 3 options, they have the 4th option. This is not a political channel. This is not Democrat or Republican kind of discussion. This is just trying to understand the author, Jonathan Haidt, how he thinks and why people vote either left or right. That is part of a summary series I'm doing on this amazing book. Now, I've done an amazing part 1 of this book. If you want to check that video, it should be somewhere here or down somewhere below this video. Go and check that part out. I did an amazing job trying to give you some of the best nuggets from this amazing book.